Hello there guys, this is Christy Lewis from Dostoevsky in Space, and today, I guess this month I really want to try out something that might help me post more videos, something that has been suggested in the comments, and something that Faith from Faith in Books does that I really have always thought was pretty brilliant, and that is just doing kind of like weekly vloggy updates that don't actually require any editing. So I'm not going to do, these are going to be pretty unedited this series, and we'll just see how it goes this month. So this is now, what is it, May 3rd, Wednesday. So there's still quite a few days left in this week, but I wanted to update you because I've had a few good focus days and gotten some reading in. So I wanted to share. So this morning I was actually what's happening right now is I'm having a health flare, which means I'm having trouble getting work done, but I have a little extra time for like my fun pursuits. So a lot of times if I'm not feeling well, that's when I'm like scripting and filming videos for my fun channel or getting a lot of reading in because I'm not as busy with work. So that's what's happening this week. Please pray for me though, because we're really hoping we can go on a vacation at the end of the month and see Victoria and meet Sandro and Julio as well. So hoping we can still do that. And if so, I will definitely vlog it. So you'll be seeing that if we go. But anyways, so what I was reading this morning was A History of Korea, of course, by Hwang, which is something I've been reading for quite a long time. But I am now in chapter 25, and it's about the 70s in North Korea. So I finished a chapter about the 70s in South Korea earlier this week, and that was fascinating because it's talking, this period is full of a lot of political upheavals in South Korean history where the presidents were like really corrupt, and it was basically like, what do you call it, an autocrat? That's not quite the right word, but regardless, there was a lot of industrial growth and a lot of rural kind of improvements in the rural areas, and like the number of people with televisions, you know, grew by like 76%. So there was a lot of growth, but there was not a lot of freedom of expression, and there was a lot of persecution for people who were expressing themselves in South Korea at this time in the 70s. So very interesting. And as usual, Korean history is, it's like all history where there's good things and there's bad things about it. The progress narrative about history isn't really true. There's good things and bad things about every era, even though we make some progress, but it always comes with some drawbacks. So, and in North Korea in the 70s, what we're seeing is actually, there's been a decline basically in starting from the 70s, and you start seeing it in like the 90s especially is when North Korea really crashes. So I haven't gotten to the 90s yet, but starting in the 70s, you start seeing this kind of echo chamber happening in North Korea where they're, after the Korean War, where they're particularly trying to, instead of making progress, like South Korea just continues making progress, even though they don't have all of the material wealth that North Korea does. North Korea kind of squanders all of its resources and ends up in this echo chamber talking about how special it is as a nation and not really actually making strides or progress. So that's what ends up happening, and it's fascinating because you see how in Pyongyang, whenever they're visitors, they talk about, you know, that it's wealthy. But that's really just the whole, that just shows that because there's such extreme poverty in the other areas of North Korea, that it's really not as fair, and it's not a socialist paradise. It's styled itself as a socialist paradise, but really there's a lot of income inequality, and people are starving in some areas, whereas Pyongyang looks so rich to all the visitors. So I thought that was really fascinating, and excited to continue reading this. And I did also start reading Nothing to Envy, Ordinary Lives in North Korea by Barbara Demick with Michi from Heart of Michi, and we're voxing about this buddy read, and this is really interesting to be reading obviously alongside a book about North and South Korea, the history of it. And so, yeah, this was fascinating. There's a lot of interesting quotes in here already. Like, there's a quote about how there's a school teacher who was 26 years old when she left North Korea, and she did not know where babies came from, because that's not, it's nobody is allowed to know that information. Like, I guess somebody tells you when you get married how babies arrive, but you don't know that until you're like married. So she has this boyfriend for like 8 or 9 years, and it took them like 4 years to hold hands and another 8 years to start to kiss or something like that. It was just like, wow, that is crazy. And it talks about how North Korea actually isn't an undeveloped nation. It's a nation that fell out of the developed world. It used to be more developed. And in fact, it was making swifter progress than South Korea when suddenly it's started having that downturn happening, where instead of focusing on progress, it started focusing more on like social controls. And the history that I was just holding up, it actually talks about how it has become more of a hereditary hierarchy, which is more like traditional Korea, which is what North Korea was supposed to be rebelling against. It was supposed to be rebelling against the hierarchy that's all about where you were born and what your rank was and stuff like that. Yeah. And Songbun is now, that is your rank. And if you marry below your rank, you become the lower rank. And if you do anything out of political favor, you lose all of your rank. And yeah, it's really become a scary system. And I think that's what Yeonmi Park is scared about happening here, where it's like people who have a certain, racial background or skin type are just instantly, it's assumed that they are, privileged, but then they actually are lower on the privilege scale, depending on how you're looking at it. So really fascinating that birth is such a big factor in everything in North Korea, and is kind of that way here as well. But anyways, yeah, so this was fascinating, and I want to share all these quotes. So sorry, it's taking me a minute to find them all. So, and I also was shocked in here. It talks about, not shocked because I've heard this before, but it talks about how South Korea is the 13th largest economic power. It's just insane to me, because they are only a generation out from starving, like family members starving. So just crazy. And yeah, and there's an interesting section in here too about the kind of movies that are allowed in North Korea. And it was interesting because it was talking about how Russian movies were allowed, and teenagers, one of the teenagers in here really loved them because they were more romantic than the North Korean ones, which were mostly about propaganda. But movies were like risque if they showed kissing, and it wouldn't even show kissing, and just like really fascinating. So highly recommend this so far. I'm not that far into it, but excited to continue that this week. And I wanted to share some of the interesting quotes that I put in my journal today. I always put quotes and words that I learn in here. So I've been working on Koine Greek a little bit. I have this Greek Interlinear New Testament, Greek and English. And so I'm reading through John 1, chapter 1. So I've gone through 2 verses so far, and I'm really learning the words as I go. I'm trying to do the Steve Kaufman method, basically, where I'm reading and listening, but I am also watching like grammar. I'm watching grammar videos on each verse as I go so that I can sort of pick up some things. But there was a video that I watched on John 1 verses 2 from Daily Dose of Greek. That's a great channel. It actually breaks down the Greek of every verse as you're going through it. So it used a term called idiolect, and that is the speech habits peculiar to a particular person. So he was talking about the idiolect of John and how John uses a lot of, I forget what words they are, but it's like these, those, that, this. And we generally translate that as more specific more specific versions of those words, because it's exhausting to just continually be reading these, those, that. I thought that was really interesting. So I'm looking forward to getting to know John's idiolect a bit more. And another interesting term that I learned today, and that was actually from this history, was Potemkin village. And so apparently in politics and economics, a Potemkin village is a construction whose purpose is to provide an external facade to a situation, to make people believe that the situation is better than it is. So basically, building a Potemkin, so it talked about how Pyongyang is a Potemkin village, because when visitors go through it, they turn on the electric and they make sure that everything looks really good. And so tourists think, wow, North Korea is really not a bad place to live. But really, it's not like that normally, and none of the rest of Korea is ever like that, ever. Like, they don't have electricity. So yeah, fascinating term. I loved learning that. And yeah, that's mainly it. Last night we had our Zoom Bible study and we went through Daniel chapter 4 and loved that. That was so interesting. Thank you so much, Dia, for coming to that. And I'm making some progress on a Canticle for Leibowitz, and I'm reading a little bit of that every night, and also a Kestrel for Knave, which is our book club pick this month. So I'm really enjoying a Kestrel for Knave. It's about a teenager who he's really getting into a lot of trouble all the time until he finds a book about hawking. Like, what's the term for hawking? I forget. But anyways, he finds a hawk and he ends up training falconry. He gets into falconry and finds a kestrel and trains it. And then he's like obsessed with the kestrel, but he's still getting really picked on and his life is really bleak in school. And I just have a feeling that, when he moves into the work world, it's going to be really similar. And he's going to be doing that in like a couple weeks, where I am in the book. But at least he'll have his hawk, to make his life a more interesting and wonderful place. So he's really discovered the joy of falconry. And so I'm really enjoying that, and I can't wait to talk about it with you guys for the book club. So definitely email me if you're interested in joining us for that Zoom discussion. I'm co-hosting that with Kate from Kate Howe's channel. So, and that is what, and I'm also really on like 96% of the way through Game of Thrones. Obsessed. So obsessed. I just can't stop listening to it. It's so good. It's taken me quite a while to actually finish because I'm listening to a lot of Korean every day now, and trying to get back into the habit of listening to BookTube, but loving that. So anyways, that's probably my cue. I needed to get going. My husband just got home. So I'll talk to you guys hopefully a little bit later in the week to just like round off this vlog entry. Talk to you soon. Bye. Hello there, guys. It is now May 6th and it's a Saturday, so I'm just gonna finish up this little vloggy update thing. Let me know what you think of me doing these, because I feel like this might be something I could keep up and at least have something happening on the channel in the meantime while I get my stuff together. So the rest of this week update. We decided not to go on our trip to visit Victoria, and I'm very sad about it. But I think instead we're gonna probably take like a shorter trip that is closer to home, and we're gonna go to one of Kevin's coworkers' weddings, and it's gonna be a couple hours away at the coast, and we have like a nice place to stay already that was given to us by Kevin's parents. So I think we're gonna do that. We're gonna go see the ocean, and honestly, that sounds like wonderful. So, and it will be only an overnight trip. So I think we're still gonna do that, and if we do end up doing that, I will 100% vlog it. So I'll let you know if that ends up happening. And so what have I read? The rest of the reading update. And I didn't really talk about the food that I made this week, so I thought I would do that too. So actually, I'll just start off with the food because I had like a very Thai week. So I made a recipe that I have it written down here. It's from Pinch of Yum, and it's the rainbow vegetarian pad thai. You can message me for a link to the recipe if you want, because it will not show up in the description. Links do not really work in descriptions very well. Sometimes I can get them to work, but I have to use like a link shortener, and then I'm always worried that will expire, and yeah. So, but if you want to, you can message me on Voxer or Instagram and I can send you the recipe. It's so good. But if you just search Pinch of Yum, rainbow vegetarian pad thai, that should get it to you. This was a recipe from Tiffany, which I have come to expect. If it's a Tiffany recipe, it's going to be delicious. It's going to be wonderful. So it was so good. And I think it's because it has a lot of fish sauce in it. And so the noodles just had a really like bright, tangy flavor. And it just tasted definitely better than any pad thai that I have personally made at home before. And then this weekend, after Kev got home from a trip, he went to LA this week. And just today we got more Thai food. I love the chicken satay skewers. You know, they're like marinated and they're so like moist and flavorful. And I think it's chicken breast, but it's like super tender. And so I just had some of those with like rice. I had way too much rice though. I'm like super full. So I think I'll have a really small dinner. But it came, and I thought I was ordering like spring rolls, like veggie spring rolls, like the ones that I just make them all the time at home. And I've shared them on Instagram before. They're so good. They're so good. I should have written down that recipe. But it's actually a Mangchi recipe. So it's Maangchi is that's like her nickname. She's a Korean chef and she is like so adorable. She's like the OG, you know, Korean chef on the internet. And like when Koreathon was happening, they recommended her as a place to go for easy recipes. I'm going to try her Korean corn dog recipe at some point because I've never gotten to have one of those and I want to. Korean corn dogs have cheese in them and they're covered in French fries and like a sugary, salty, yeah, I definitely want to try that. I am concerned about deep frying things because it never goes well for me. Deep frying never goes well. But since it's like a hot dog, it doesn't, I mean, it's gonna get cooked. I mean, it's already cooked. You just have to basically like heat it up. And I think I can manage that. So whenever there's raw meat in the middle, that's something I don't want to deep fry. I would rather just bake it. Or maybe I might even bake the Korean corn dogs. Anyways, that's something I should talk about. Later this month, I'm going to set up a poll for a Korean readathon that I will be doing with several people here on BookTube. It's going to be called K-trope-athon. And Yoon from Dokja Yoon is going to be joining us. And Tiffany from Beautiful Minutia is my co-host that has been creating it with me for like over a year, I think. We've been talking about it. And because of her, it's happening. Because I sort of lost steam throughout because I was like, I don't know if I'm the right person to like put this together. But when Yoon joined us, I definitely felt better about it. So we'll talk more about that as it gets going. But it's going to be so fun. It's going to be all about the tropes in K-drama and K-pop. And we're going to have a bingo board and it's going to be awesome. We're going to do K-pop Mad Libs. Yeah. So anyways, maybe for that, I will try making Korean corn dogs and vlogging it because I really want to try those. Anyways, so what else? Oh, and I also made this TikTok recipe for like did you ever try the McFish from McDonald's or the BK fish from Burger King? I don't even know if those exist anymore, but I used to love those as a kid. It's like a cod fillet that's like deep fried and then on a sandwich roll, just like a white sandwich roll with like tartar sauce and pickles basically, and maybe some lettuce. And I used to love that. That was my mom and my both guilty pleasure when I was growing up. But they're kind of gross now. And I think at least one of them doesn't have them anymore. So I found this recipe online and I did not like the recipe. And I'm so bummed. So I'm going to try out tweaking it a little bit. And if I end up really liking it, I will let you guys know next week. And I think it also has American cheese on it. So we got some deli American cheese, which is really good. I don't remember ever getting American cheese from the deli before, but it's really good. It's like way better than Kraft singles. So anyways, that's kind of what I was eating this week. And so the TikTok recipe, oh, I won't even tell you. Why would I tell you? It's not good. So anyways, okay, so back to reading. So I finished the first Game of Thrones books. Now this was my first time going through the Game of Thrones books. And I DNF'd the first book years ago, and I don't know if I'm a different person or what, but I was listening to it on one speed the entire book. Like, it was so good. Like, I just loved it so much. I'm so invested in the children, and I love that no character is safe, even though some of my favorites have already died. No character is safe, and the morality is very gray and complex, and I like that. It's not like very simple, and yeah, you have to be smart to survive a Game of Thrones. You can't just be just. You also have to be really smart. And I feel like some of the characters in there that I really liked, they were like good, but not necessarily smart. So yeah, very invested in the children. Very excited to see what happens with the mythology. Yeah, so definitely getting to continue that. I already started book 2. And I also finished... and I can't wait to find out more about like the White Walkers and the old gods and the children. And I can't wait for winter to come. Like, I'm so ready. I cannot wait for this. And so I also finished A Kestrel for a Knave by Barry Hines, which was a very short... I didn't even really describe what Game of Thrones is about, but y'all probably know. Like, I'm sure you all know. Game of Thrones is about a kingdom that is on a planet where when winter comes, it comes for several years or seasons. And when summer comes, it comes for several seasons or years. And usually if there's been a really long summer, that means there's going to be a really long winter. And the winter can see snows up to like 100 feet. So it's like a really intense winter. And so there's this saying in the world called winter is coming. And so we're following a family called the Starks, who are kind of rural. They're like in a rural area. They are like very grim. And I just love getting to know the family. And they have like 4 kids, I think. And they're all so different. All the kids are so different. And I'm really excited to see how they grow up, because I have a feeling they're going to grow up over the course of the series. And they receive word. They are related to the king. They're like friends, and they have cousins and things that are like at court. So they find out that's one of their friends or family members at court. Sorry, it's a little fuzzy. There's a lot of characters. That is one thing. There's just a lot of characters. And I was listening to it on an audiobook because that's the only way realistically and logistically that I was going to finish it. They get whisperings that I think his cousin was killed at court, and that his wife has like run away to her keep, which is very well defended, because it's impossible to get to pretty much for anybody unless they are a friend, and she sends down a basket for them like on a cliff's edge. So basically there's news that her husband was murdered, and so they kind of know that they are getting into some political intrigue when the king comes and visits the Starks and invites them to the capital, to his court. And I just remember this from the first time I read it. There's this jousting scene that was like incredible. And I was like, I love this. I love this so much. So yeah, fascinating, wonderful. Can't get enough. Can't wait for the next one. So, and I finished A Kestrel for a Knave, which was actually really short. And it's like, it almost reads like a memoir, but like a poetic memoir. It's almost like poetry. And it's very like intuitive. It's almost like it's not writing. It's like images that you're getting. And it's following a young boy I didn't write down the date or anything. Well, that's okay. We're going to have a Zoom discussion of this. And so I need to come up with discussion questions. So I'll kind of figure out my thoughts on it a little bit more before then. But it was really beautiful. The writing was really beautiful. It was really harsh. And yeah, I can't wait to discuss it. I just feel like discussions are the best way to really deep dive into a piece of literature because there's always so much to discuss. What exactly happened? Because sometimes we're not all sure. The way it was written isn't always clear. And then what it all means and what we all thought of it. Those are three like very separate things. And so I can't wait to discuss it. It's going to be amazing. And I totally just lost my... Okay, here we go. So, yeah. And then we just had our O Pioneers discussion for Tiffany's Patreon, and it was wonderful. Yeah, I feel like I got everybody's perspective, and it actually made me want to film a video on O Pioneers. So I think I'm going to do that after this. So, yeah. I also have been reading The Pioneers by David McCullough because I was buddy reading it with Tiffany because we were like, oh, nonfiction about the pioneers. You know, I wonder if this would help us with Willa Cather, but I think it's this is like shortly after the Revolutionary War, before we even have a president. And it's fascinating to hear about, like, this is people trying to, I think it's over the Ohio River. They're trying to settle Ohio. And they're like talking about, okay, who are we going to send to like buy the land off of Congress? Because they're basically land speculators at this point. They're like pillars of the community who are excited about, I guess, getting the land in the hands of veterans was one of their aims. So yeah, I'm excited to continue on with that because it's so interesting. I didn't even ever think about how land was being distributed at this point, the Northwest Territory, you know, when there wasn't even a president yet. Of course, you would have to send someone to Congress to talk to Congress about buying it. Like, just really fascinating details. And one of the main guy that we're following in this book, I think he's like a preacher, but he's not like austere and boring. Like, he's not, you know, what people stereotypically think of a preacher as. Like, he has an eye for women and, you know, stuff like that. So he's like quite a character. And I'm really enjoying this. So I'm only like 5% in though, because every time I was originally going to listen to it with Tiffany, and I just cannot listen to it. I keep getting lost. So anyways, it's great so far though. So hopefully I'm going to read some more of that. And I have some other things here. I'm going to keep working on History of Korea because I really want to... Actually, I don't know if I'll be able to finish it this month, but that would be my goal. And I only have a couple chapters left. But a couple chapters with this takes me a while because I take such notes. But I'm going to be reading a history book with Michi from Michi Reviews and Heart of Michi starting in June, I believe. So I need to finish this. Like, I really want to. And I want to be reading the memoirs of Lady Kyung with Tiffany and Joanna, my K-drama buddies. So in order to do that, I need to finish the history of Korea. What else? I'm going to make so these are kind of the things that I'm looking at doing for the rest of the month, but you'll know because I'll be doing updates. Hopefully more of Nothing to Envy by Barbara Demick. And I just got this from the library, this part library haul. Mary Stewart's Heirs Above Ground. And it's like a thriller. I'm so intrigued by this. This is, Emma the Bookish Princess's book club pick this month. Yeah, I'm excited about this. And I really want to finish my Korean short stories. I really want to finish and put behind me Canticle for Leibowitz, which I actually almost DNF'd at like 40%, but then it suddenly started getting interesting again because I think when books start introducing lots of characters, I have trouble with that because it's not that it's bad, it's just harder for me. And I'm not sure I want to be that invested in, you know, sci-fi and fantasy where it has to be difficult for me. I only really want to read them if they're relaxing and fun and not difficult. I have a low difficulty tolerance these days. And then I also picked these up from the library, which, are they not just gorgeous? Like, wow. So these, I'm loving this series. It's so good. It's the historical Apothecary Diary, the historical fiction type Apothecary Diaries manga. Anyways, so that's what's going on. And yeah, let me know how you're doing this week, if you had any favorites, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.